It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org from Louisville Public Media.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here, checking out the series. Please do hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with all the interviews that I put out every single week. In fact, it's 3 brand new interviews every week, a new one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to keep you up to date on your favorite artists, discover some new ones, know what's happening in the music world. You can find us at iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, Podchaser, NPR, YouTube for the video versions, or anywhere you get your podcasts from. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today I'm once again talking with Damon Albarn. We're going to be discussing his new solo album, The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows, the original concept of writing and recording in Iceland, and the vibrations that attract his various projects around the world. Of course, the Blur Gorillaz frontman is also going to talk about his how his childhood drawings inspired the song Combustion, the ghosts that haunt the Tower of Montevideo, and the complicated layers of the track Particles. Auburn's also going to tip us off on what the Gorillaz are up to. That does include a Bad Bunny collab, and how the next season of their Song Machine may be shorter videos made for TikTok. I wonder how that'll affect the songs themselves. That's all on the way. Let's do this. The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows. It's Kyle Meredith with Damon Albarn.
Hi, I'm back. Nice. Right in the epicenter of everything.
I guess. Sure.
The beating heart of America.
Sometimes it just feels like Kentucky in all the ways. I got to tell you how much in love with this new solo record I am. Once again, the Nearer the Fountain, the More Pure the Stream. It's really beautiful and dark and a little bit scary sometimes.
Just like me.
What I noticed about it is there seems to be a more a direct concentration on the poetry, sometimes in an abstract way. I don't know if that's a good entry point into our interview, but it does seem like that's a thing.
Poetry, do you mean sort of saying something another way?
Yeah, I guess so. It just does seem like there's a different way that you're approaching your lyrics this time around.
Yeah. I think I don't know. Is it more considered? I think it must be a reflection of that period, from like February last year to today, as we're still completely sort of engulfed in the particles. So.
Was there anything then that gave sort of the direction, the slow build of these songs, the mood? I mean, it's a definite mood across this record.
Yes. Well, I mean, it comes from the beginning of the whole idea, which was somebody said to me one night, would you like to do anything that you've never got around to doing but always dreamt of doing? And I said, well, I'd love to take some musicians up to Iceland and just stare out of a particular window and sort of just see what happens and play the landscape and how it changes and all the weather patterns that come in and then disperse and transform, metamorphosize. So that was the sort of the beginning of it, and did that 3 times and recorded all the workshops. And then pandemic arrived and had to sort of just abandon that idea because it was like it didn't work unless we were there and all together. So that just wasn't working. And then I kind of left it for about 8 months or so, and then I really felt in like January that I had to sort of make it into a record and just sort of express how I was feeling, So in January and February, I took all the sort of recordings from Iceland and then just started writing and making songs over the top of it, really, and tried to keep it in some sort of, arc.
There's something about Iceland. I don't know, anytime an artist goes there, I mean, it apparently has such a strong effect on art. I wrote down here, you know, especially how it seems like you do consider the environment so much up there. Like, I've never been to Iceland. What is it about it?
Well, I mean, in America, you can relate to that vastness and space. You've all kind of witnessed that, you know. As but I think what's amazing about Iceland is it's an island, you know, and it's also the youngest island on Earth. It's still sort of forming. It's, you know, there's a volcano outside, 40 minutes drive outside of Reykjavik at the moment. There's a huge open fissure, and you know, it's very dramatic. It's like there's a big split in underneath us, and I think in just from that, the vibrations that come from something like that, you immediately realize how delicate our relationship is with nature and everything, you know. So it forces you to think about things.
I was, I don't know if fair is the right word, but I was comparing this record with your other solo record with Everyday Robots that I have behind me here. And I thought how interesting, you know, these two times that you put your own, just your name, you know, this isn't a Gorillaz record, it's not a Blur record, obviously, anything like that. And you have Everyday Robots that's sort of, you know, as I listened to that one, sort of contemplated our moments in science and a little bit of AI in that world. And then
it's a bit there. It's haunted by androids and things like that, definitely.
but then to get to flip on this record right here to be so natural, did you mean for them to play together like that?
Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, I suppose it's quite nice when you get that strong contrast, you know.
Even as a coincidence, it works together really well. I love listening to it like
I'm
that.
a great believer in coincidence.
Coincidence. What is it though? You know, when you go looking, you know, so we're talking about Iceland here. You've done projects in Africa.
Africa can't be kind of sort of just, you know, I can call Iceland because it is like a very homogenous society and culture, but Africa is like so complex and varied, you know. It's just extraordinary amount of cultural kind of magnificence within it. So when you say I've worked in Africa, well, that doesn't mean anything because I haven't worked in Africa. I've worked in parts of it, and I suppose why people feel comfortable, I don't know, sort of just looking at it as one kind of homogenous thing is because I suppose it is kind of imbued with that like primary vibration for humanity. So okay, I'll let you have it.
Well, I guess I was going for a broader thing there because I bring up the music that you did looking at like Asian music, and what I'm getting to is to be such an artist, a worldly artist in this way. Are you looking for something like, what are you looking for when you specifically look at a place on Earth as you're doing for these various projects, if anything?
They're just all fascinating, you know, and making music, especially. I mean, I think it's the same for anyone, but just as soon as you start overthinking it, it becomes completely moribund. You know, you need to be able to forget yourself, and it's a very kind of mind expanding way to forget yourself by going to and existing as much as you can in different kind of vibrations, you know. And I use vibrations because as far as music's concerned, that's what it is. It's that vibration and then the space between it and the next one, you know. So again, darkness and light and all things monochrome.
It's interesting, the vibration thing too, because I think for a lot of people, you know, music that comes out of different parts of the world will sound very, very different. I would imagine that, I don't know, I don't want to assume anything actually. Do you find that there is a grand meeting ground musically speaking with all the cultures that you've written with?
Absolutely, 100%. I know that to be the truth, you know.
I mean, I know eventually it all comes sort of from the same place.
And
You
the only
know?
reason I know that is because I get the same feeling everywhere.
Yeah. Which is what, can you?
Can I define it?
Yeah.
No.
That's fair. That's okay.
There you go.
That's it.
That's it.
I'll take that. I'll take that. Well, I'll pull it back around to this one then. There is a line though, you know, and maybe again, I'm looking at it through the microscope here. There's a line of Royal Morning Blue where you say, there's at the end, you talk about the sort of the end of the world, you know, you've been the end of the world with me. That seems like an end of the world place up there.
Yes, exactly. It's not as quite as dramatic as it may sort of feel I've conveyed it, because it is a kind of an ode in a way to Iceland, you know. The whole song is kind of, it's just about Iceland as a thing.
You did mention having a dark journey while making this record. When you were talking about that, were you just talking about having to go through, as you were saying, the early stuff, the pandemic, and how that all affected the music within this?
I was just thinking there was that really dodgy Eurovision film, wasn't there, with Will Ferrell? But the one good thing about it was the Iceland's entry. I really like that song.
Well, there is, and I'm just using the lines again from the songs right here. Am I in prison? I mean, it's the line that starts the cormorant. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many cormorants you get in Kentucky, and indeed, I don't know how many shags you get either.
I'm learning a lot of words through your album. I think what most is about.
The two names that we give to the cormorant is the cormorant or the shag.
Yeah, that word's always meant something very different to me, the shag.
Yeah, so I find it endlessly amusing.
How does a song like Combustion come about? Because that's a fun one.
It is. It's actually part of a much longer thing, which I kind of didn't have the I don't know. I either was sensible enough to admit or wasn't brave enough to include. It had that kind of vibe, the music, but I'd kind of got hold. My mum had given me all my picture books from when I was like 6, over a sort of a 2 or 3 month period. And it was like every day there was the date, and then there was there'd be a crayon, one of those cheap crayons that you have, but whole page coloured in. And then there'd be a rocket and someone falling out of a rocket, and then it'll be, this is a rocket. Next day it'll be this is a rocket hitting another rocket, you know, and it just got more and more manic. All these pictures, and I thought that'd be brilliant just to sort of verbatim, recite this madness of an overexcited child, you know. But I spent like 2 or 3 days, but everyone with me, I just wasn't getting the reaction that I was hoping for. So I just left it. And that's how we ended up with Combustion, like it is.
It's still maddening though. I mean, and it easily paints a mood. Colors.
Yeah, no. There was enough of the problem was, if I'd have done the other thing, it would have been too distracting in context. I'd just gone off on such a tangent. But this way, it's still got that energy, that sort of, you know, the head's about to explode, you know, and that kind of feeling, which you get in Iceland. But you switch on the tap, and you get this incredible hot water that's hydrothermal. So all the water is heated naturally in Iceland, and everyone has like steam rooms, and all they do is they just have a lever, just switch it, and then it comes from the earth into their houses. I mean, that's an amazing thing. And they have 7 municipal pools around Reykjavik. And bear in mind, it's only about 250,000 people. So they've got these 7 of these big pools, and they're all big heated outdoor swimming pools. And then they have hot tubs, hotter tubs, really freezing cold tubs, steam, sauna, all municipal. in 7 parts of the city. And that's what people do in the early evening. They go and swim, sit in really hot water, look at the stars, then get into really cold water, freeze, see how long they can stay in there, and get back in the hot water. But it does afford you a beautiful night's sleep. And there's nothing wrong with that from where I come from, I tell thee.
That's, I think, what I'm getting at with this whole interview too, is like the way you've taken just these feelings, these emotions, these visuals around you, and put them into music. It's not always an easy thing to do, and I think a lot of artists do strive for that. I mean, I'll also bring up, the instrumental moment on here, Asia. I don't know if I'm coming.
Asia,
yeah. Like, builds this tension within that song again that is a little bit frightening and scary, but it makes, especially on that one, it makes the turnaround on the Tower of Montevideo that much better.
Yeah. No, it's real relief, isn't it?
Right, exactly, as a relief.
But the problem is that that's about ghosts. So it's even scarier, really. It's actually the introduction to a horror movie.
But it feels good, so that's
exactly. But it's one of those horror. Yeah, but if you got the visual as well, it'd be a perfect start to a horror movie, because you know what I mean.
Right.
That's how I feel about it today. But tomorrow I might feel that I'm actually on a cruise ship in just outside Montevideo, and looking at the lighthouse on the top of the Tower of Montevideo that can, when it was working, could reach Buenos Aires across the River Plate. Huge, great expanse of water, big delta. Just to think that in the 1930s they had something like that, and there was a huge, great cinema inside this tower block, and there was a big ballroom. It was a very decadent place, and it's got a lot of, I don't know, it's really inspired me. It's cool. It's beautiful. Anyone should check it out.
Yeah.
Beautiful building, really beautiful.
I learned a lot through your records, especially about geography. That's true. It really is true.
That's great. That's no bad thing.
I'll just quickly say about the end of the record too. I mean, coming back during Particles, and we get the fountain, and the way, again, the whole album has sort of flowed like water in that way. And I do love how you bring that all back around. And is the ending sort of an answer to the title track at the beginning?
Yeah, has to be, doesn't it? When we disperse, I was thinking today, it's like, well, I kind of, all the things that I'm singing about in that song Particles, because it is quite complicated. It's kind of a conversation with a female rabbi from Winnipeg, then sort of a kind of a moment with the Northern Lights, and then it's just the whole idea of particles, and the fact that you never really leave a situation. Most of you leaves, but some of you doesn't leave, and it becomes part of that reality and experience for some other thing that passes through those particles. Love that idea. I was thinking that, in like medieval, well, actually just everywhere, people have very significant ancestral kind of pieces, whether it's a piece of bone or a piece of cloth, or a stone that was touched by somebody, or anything, but it's that's the kind of sort of ecstatic thing that the if they touch these things, they were somehow kind of smearing some of the particles of the previous great incumbent, and then like wiping it on themselves, like a kind of spiritual emollient.
It's the same reason why I touch the walls of places when I'm around it. You just, for that connection to the past. For me,
precisely, it's exactly the same thing.
It's beautiful the way you've all done this. I mean, seriously, it's such an interesting record. So my compliments there.
Thank you very much.
And in the meantime, we're also spinning a lot of the new Gorillaz EP with the Meanwhile EP, and that's such a fun one. I've heard you're working. Is what you're working on the next version of the? Are you working on season 2, basically?
Well, I'm trying to do something. I feel like I've got this Bad Bunny tune, which I think is really interesting, and we recorded in a storm in Jamaica, and kept the doors open so that we could hear the storm all the way through the recording. and it's got a really nice atmosphere about it. And I feel like I'd just like to sort of explore that world a bit more for the next thing. Now, whether that's season 2, I mean, but the season 2 would have to be on TikTok, wouldn't it? Now it's just like it's not viable to be making those huge, great videos anymore. So I think everything's just got to go. So Jamie's just got to start going, and then I think we'll be fine. But I think it's moved on to other platforms other than YouTube, isn't it? Really, the dissemination of new music. So you've got to move the times, man.
Yes, you do. You've done a good job of that. I like what you're saying about that Bad Bunny too, because it sounds like what you were doing with this album is sort of infiltrating what you might be doing with the next one too, just with nature being allowed within the songs. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I think it's important as well, isn't it?
I love what you do. Obviously, I'm a fan, and I will continue to listen. Thank you so much. And thank you for the birthday song too. That was
there
huge.
You go. I mean, I hope you recorded that.
Luckily, I hit record right before the camera went over. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, mate. Yeah, lots of love. Happy birthday.
Now, also include a couple of previous interviews that Damon and I have done together. The first one goes back to 2018. It's when Gorillaz had just released their record, The Now Now. Damon and I got to talk about themes of isolation, recording in hotel rooms, and gun control in the United States, as well as a little bit of talk on the good, bad, and the Queen. This is part 2 of Kyle Meredith with Damon Albarn.
Hey, man.
I appreciate you doing this. I was so excited to get a new Gorillaz record and to, I don't know, still be at the caliber that the Now Now is. Congrats on another fine one, man.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, I'll never know what people think of it, really, until I speak to somebody. Because they scare me, all those comment things.
Well, you've done a great one here, and I thought I'd ask by, starting with a little bit of the Gorillaz, the cartoon side of it, how close is this, would you call it, to a 2D solo record?
Quite close, really. I mean, it's definitely his universe. I think we wanted to write a record within a record, and the only way we could do that was to sort of zoom in on one of the characters and how they're feeling. Because Humanz was such a kind of sort of vast record in that sense. There's a lot of collective history on that,
I mean, I guess a lot's been talked about Humanz. There were a lot of guests on that, and this does seem like a bit of a reaction.
I think that the wonderful thing about anyone's musical sort of journey is that, one thing leads to another. That's the wonderful thing about it,
I know it's different, and this is way more of a traditional record, but it does seem like it has some relations in the way it's put together to the Fallouts.
I'd say it started with a similar process, just maybe I'd learned more about how to sort of capture those feelings that I was kind of sort of recording when we were doing Plastic Beach. It's a different time as well, and that always makes, on this occasion it felt like it was more urgent to finish it and put it out. Felt like it was important to do that if I was going to come back to America in particular. It had to be a kind of sort of, an emotional response to what the world that the Humanz record kind of suggested.
I wanted to ask sort of about the storylines as they go, because during Humanz we were sort of talking about how maybe it was, looked at as one of it was like the dance party at the end of the world, I think is the phrase that was used. And I kind of wondered...
the end of the world, the end of one world and the beginning of another world, the beginning of the post-truth world.
And that's what I wondered, like, does this pick up the
storyline? Now is it, we're in that world, so in that sense, the now's kind of in a dream, because we're in a dream at the moment, right?
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd call it a dream or a nightmare, but we're in something right now, and it just gets more ridiculous.
No. They're all dreams they're all the same, it's just different outcomes. They're still dreams.
Well, and I'll blur that line between, the artist and
no pun intended,
from the character too, because there's a line in the first single where you say, I don't want this isolation, and I thought, here we are. I don't know, because at one point, the way I pick up on that line is like we are more isolated than ever on our screens, but I also knew that you wrote a lot of these in hotel rooms around the country, and I wondered.
I suppose I don't really think. I think maybe it's the views that you get from high elevations that inspired me more than anything with this record in America, because it's just so elevated in so many ways, you know, and there's such kind of different meditations you can take from that. If I'm recording in a room which has a window down on the air conditioning machines on the top of buildings, and the sort of echoey sound of police sirens through the high avenues, you know, it's a different sort of feeling I get than if I'm sort of in Ketchum and looking out on mountains. You know, it's different, but all these amazing elevations. So that's kind of what this record is. That's why it's kind of got that dreamy quality to it, because it does feel like you're disconnected in a sense, isolated.
Let me ask about another line in that song then, maybe in relation to that, because the other one that kind of clued me in was, "That's the ball where we be chained."
That's the now. And then in the second verse, it starts with calling the hunter with the rifle, and that's kind of, you know, that's related to isolation in the sense that, you know, the hunter who lives in the mountains in Idaho has a very different sort of feeling emotionally about guns. They're a very different part of their psyche there, you know, and yet there's this crazy connection between everywhere and, you know, your sort of the gun laws in America are just so, in that sense, that's another ball that chains people, you know, that sort of, we live in interesting times, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you understand what I mean? I know it's a very emotive subject to talk about, but, you know, you were asking me about the lyrics in that song, and I'm just saying they're sort of, you know, I'm kind of traveling all the time, and you pick up on vibrations in different places, and you sort of internalize them, and then sort of exhale, and something comes out, and that's how I sort of work.
I don't want to go off on too many tangents. I was about to say, you know, I'm pro-gun law. I think they need to be stricter, and at the same time, I just sent my son away to a summer camp, which is a fish and wildlife thing, and I know that, you know, that's going to be part of that.
I can totally understand it in context of that.
Yeah.
In the sense of that world and that sense of space and, you know, respect. I can totally understand it in that sense. But, you know, it's just the fact that can't sort of be mirrored by what the other aspects of it are. I just don't. It's just such a difficult subject, isn't it?
No, it ain't shaking itself out easy, and I don't suppose that we're going to solve the world's problem.
No.
But
I mean, at the end, when they come out the other end, do they feel like they came in? No, they don't. They've changed. They've metamorphosized into other things. You know.
Yeah. I was going to say I'll move further down the record.
No. I enjoy talking about things which I'm not entirely sure I know anything about. They're more kind of instinctive and emotional reactions to things. So I can only kind of sort of work like that with it.
Well, I was going to pick out one of my favorite songs from it anyway. And it's Hollywood. I mean, it's one of my favorite songs on the record. And I was thinking, like, you know, you've from what you're saying, so here you've come out of the forest, you've come out of the mountains, and now you're right smack in the middle of just this.
Definitely. That's definitely what's going on there. Yeah, I wrote two of the songs on the record in Los Angeles, that one and also the last song, Sukai. Both on the same day. They were recorded in the same place, on the same balcony, but just different times of day, obviously. You know, and I'm really into recording where you've got, you know, light, and it's just such a different experience to recording inside a studio in the dark, so to speak.
It completely affects even the chords of a song, it sounds like. I mean, you kind of pick up on that, yeah. And
that's why it's possible just to sort of just go into a room and go, right, what we're going to do today, because you just absorb everything that's around you and then work with that. You know, I wouldn't do it. It's entirely sort of generated by what it is. You know what I mean? It's sort of where you go is what it sort of determines what's going to happen. I know that's really obvious, and because you know that's only one side of it. And then in back in London, I worked with James Ford and Remy, who I'd worked on Humanz with, and we, you know, all the songs got a really kind of, they were really investigated, and I don't know, we worked really well and sort of didn't put stuff down to be fussy. We just sort of wanted it to kind of sort of emotionally hit you.
I know that song, you know, it's one of the few songs with guests on it. And you've got Snoop Dogg, and you've got...
Jamie Principle.
Thank you. But it made me realize, very few guests, and I thought, is this the first Gorillaz record that doesn't have De La Soul on it?
No, the first one didn't either.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's been a while still. That's...
Yeah, I consider them to be totally part of the band. We're family.
Well, again, going back to the idea of a concept of a sort of the 2D solo record, I see now how that fits in. That makes more sense to me now.
Right. Oh, okay. Good. I wanted to put another record out because I had one. Sort of, and I just felt it accompanied the first one, and was. I feel strongly about it. I think it's a place which I've sort of learned to love over a very long period of time. But I feel quite. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's one of those countries where if you spend a lot of time there and you get to know people, you feel sort of involved.
It does seem like it's easier to make Gorillaz records now than it used to be. Is there a sense that maybe in this light that it won't take so long between releases, or are you even thinking that far ahead?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just finishing literally. Well, I'll try to finish it today, but it'll probably be tomorrow or maybe not. Another record that's going to put out at the end of this year, but that's with The Good, the Bad, and the Queen.
I mean, you've had a lot of things going on your plate, so I know to juggle one versus the other. So it's
well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I'm trying to finish that, and I'm on tour in Europe doing festivals, but I'm coming home in between them. But what should be like, because you're working all weekend doing festivals, and you come home on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and that should be your weekend. But because I've stupidly started and want to totally make this next record right, I'm not having any weekends at the moment. It's my own fault.
It usually is for all of us. I do the same thing.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah. Another thing I did want to ask about this record before I pass it up, there's a track called 1%, and someone had pointed out that it had ties back to Hostiles from your solo record, Everyday Robots. And I wanted to see if that was true, if that was an actual thing, if there was a reason.
I think they're probably from a similar sort of world, I mean, it's inevitable, really, isn't it? Sometimes. But I didn't write it then. I mean, I wrote that in Zurich, and the 1% refers to the marijuana which they have legalized in Switzerland. But being Swiss, they've taken everything out of it that's interesting. So it's only got 1% of whatever it is that you have that gives it its potency. So you can buy like a bag just in the supermarket, but it won't do anything.
I mean, that's a interesting phrase though to throw around when you're talking about America. I mean, that 1%. That's two words that got thrown around a lot in the last few years around here, meaning something completely different than what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying. I'm just telling you. I'm just giving you news from Europe about Switzerland.
Appreciate it.
And it's not fake news.
It's not fake news. We need all the real news we can get these days, honestly.
No. Maybe we just don't need any news. I think that's probably what we need. No news.
Just turn off?
No news. Good. No. Yeah, exactly. Not that you should be saying that because you're a radio station, and Yeah. Turn off all your devices. Don't listen to the news. Only listen to music.
I do want to head back in the time machine just a second because 20 years ago, and this ties back in to the new record or just Gorillaz in whole, but 20 years ago, Blur released a remix record called Bustin' and Dronin'. I don't know if you've thought about that or heard it.
No, I haven't listened to it since. What does it sound like? Any good?
No, it is good, and I was just kind of putting it on because I like looking at anniversaries and the big round numbers, and I started thinking, like, given the timeline, and I'd had Graham Coxon on my show recently, too, and we were sort of talking about that era because his first solo record came out that same year. But I started wondering if that was sort of the entryway at all, in any way, to Gorillaz, because of the style of the electronics that you were doing with that.
Maybe. I mean, I think the first sort of, I think William Orbit had a huge influence on what I did next. Definitely. And I think up to that point, maybe that was the first one. I don't know. The one thing always leads to another.
Right.
That's for sure.
Graham had said he had remembered, some songs that you were writing around that time ended up becoming Gorillaz songs. And I thought, no, that's so cool because all of that was sort of, I know it's hard to pinpoint. Nothing happens just directly, I'm doing this and here we go.
Well, I mean, it's all coming from the same place as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's, I see myself like, I think I need to become an app.
An app? You need to become an app.
I need to become an app, yeah.
And how so? Why?
Well, in the sense that, then I can sort of make music with anyone who wants to make music with me, because I like making music with people.
And you're the one who has to put it under the umbrella of something, of a name.
Oh, my new band's going to be an app.
I kind of like that,
Not a bad idea. I mean, it's maybe not the best idea in the world, but it's not a bad idea for a Tuesday around 9 o'clock.
Well, I guess what I'm saying as a fan, to keep up with all of your projects, it'd be kind of nice just to have it under one roof. Like, I'll hit that button, and there we go. There's that sound.
I know. Well, I've always thought I need an algorithm to sort of actually put all the songs, into albums as opposed to sort of bands.
Key for Damon solo, key for Gorillaz, key for Good, Bad, and Queen, and key for Blur.
Song album, fast song album, slow song album, silly album, only listen to once album, another album you only listen to once, I mean, whatever. An algorithm and an app.
Graham did say he was up for another one with you. You've got so much going on, a seemingly bottomless creativity. Does that collaboration still?
I love playing with Graham. He's amazing.
He's on this record, right? He's on this album. He played guitar on Gorillaz.
Yes, there's a very little bit of him, yeah. There is in one of the songs. Yeah, no, I mean, hey man, whenever Graham's around, I'm up for playing music with him. It's my brother.
It's just a different umbrella when you have to call it Blur, but we'll be... I mean, by the way, I'm just giving you props there. I loved the Magic Whip, and to know that you all still had such... I'm going to use that word again, magic with each other, the chemistry. That was really fun to hear and everything. So if that happens again in the future, I'll be...
Well, that's all to Graham's credit, that one. He's the one that salvaged all the stuff, got it going.
In the meantime, the Now is just a great record.
Oh, thank you very much.
I love hearing Gorillaz come around as often as possible, but luckily, when you're a fan of Damon Albarn, something's bound to be right around the corner, one way or the other.
Yeah, what I really would never like to do is for people to get sick of me. You know what I mean? Because I was putting out too much stuff. So, like, if that starts to happen, can like you do to elderly relatives, can you just put your arm around me nicely and wheel me off, please?
Sure. I'll say sure, but I just don't see it happening. I really don't.
Well, listen, I'm just, preparing for the worst.
I guess keep preparing because whatever, man. I like what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing, and thanks once again for taking the time to let me nerd out on it all and get all of my questions asked.
My pleasure. Nice to speak to you.
All right, you too. Take care, Damon.
Cheers. Bye.
And we'll round it out with one more interview from 2017. Damon and I got to talk about the Gorillaz album Humanz, which he started planning and writing before the presidential election, but with the idea of it happening in mind, made for an interesting contrast with lyrical themes battling against up-tempo club sound. So part 3, Kyle Meredith with Damon Albarn.
From everything I've heard from this Gorillaz record, it's a cool record. I've got to say, though, it's fair to say that this is the most different-sounding Gorillaz record we've heard yet, right?
I don't know if there is a Gorillaz sound. So, I mean, by very definition, it changes utterly every time we put a record out because it's totally new people.
That's true.
I mean, the only consistent thing, literally, from the first record to this one is me. Everything else has changed. All the people who work behind the scenes have changed. Every record, all the artists changed. Well, no, that's not true, actually. Myself and De La Soul are the only consistent things that have traveled through the 5 albums.
I guess it's that mood that you bring every time. That's the consistent sound for me. It is.
Yeah. Yes, I suppose so. My chords, my minor chords, maybe.
I guess it's this one, though, against everything, all the other records, this one almost seems more in line with pop music as a whole. And I don't know if I want to say contemporary pop, but there is something very contemporary about it as opposed to the other ones.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm really delighted if I've managed to do that because, I mean, that is literally a fluke at my age. That's not... You can't really manufacture that. It's just either somehow you fall in with the zeitgeist or not. Do you know what I mean? It's
right.
Not.
Well, I've heard you talk about this being a club record.
Yeah, I think so. I wanted to make an upbeat. I wanted to use my kind of experience to make a club record, and I wanted a club record that had a narrative arc, so that you could put it on and feel like you've entered a kind of a movie of types.
Which is two things that don't play together a lot of times. Club records and
No.
storyline. Pop opera.
Pop opera, well, I've been messing about with various forms of opera for a long time as well, but not on record.
What is the storyline this time around?
Well, it's sort of it takes place in a non-linear way, sort of in a city, maybe New York, but a kind of a generic city on post a traumatic kind of shift in what people believe in and how people see themselves and see the people around them in the near future. And I mean, you know, when you start a record like I did at the beginning of last year, I suppose I was kind of sort of, you know, I entered a dark fantasy where someone like Donald Trump ran for president and became president.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of strangely, as the sort of the closer I got to finishing the record, the closer that dark fantasy became reality. But you know, it's not about Donald Trump. He's just a manifestation of that malign kind of sort of not quantum, but that malign sort of shift in how we feel about our surroundings and the people that we exist closely with, you know. And it's kind of, I wanted to make a record where people were out that night drinking and talking about communicating with each other, and the kind of that sense of uneasiness, but that sort of sense of exhilaration, because you know we all get kind of sort of slightly, I don't know, our adrenaline is affected regularly by the sort of crazy information loops that are projected out, you know, and the sort of the mistruths that get propagated, and the conversation, the madness of social media. And so yeah, all of those sort of things were in my head all the time, you know, and the conversations I had with all the artists that we collaborated with were kind of sort of, you know, initiated by that imagine a night in the near future when you're out and something has happened that you never thought was possible. How would you feel about it?
And how do you deal with it with all the people around you?
How do you deal with it exactly?
Yeah.
How do you deal with it exactly? So that was it, but that's a loose narrative. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that was definitely a big kind of sort of starting point for every conversation with every artist. I mean, at the beginning, you know, when I was working with them, at the beginning, they were going, "Oh yeah, well, obviously that's never going to happen," and then I sort of got more and more kind of sort of emails at the end of the year going, you know, oh shit, it did happen.
Well, that's what I'm finding is a really interesting times, because a lot of artists that I'm talking to right now, who've especially written, you know, similar themes and everything, it all started out as a what if, because every album that's releasing now was probably written at the beginning of the year. And so what wasn't it not exactly a protest song?
Yeah, it's kind of strange. That is interesting. And I mean, and I think obviously there's going to be a whole swathe of music that will come out sort of later this year from people who are reacting to it actually happening. You know, I was reacting to the idea of it happening, the sense, the sort of the energy indefinable at first, but became more and more kind of sort of loud and became deafening and then became madness.
I mean, I can't help thinking of your title Demon Days suddenly.
Yes, no. Well, I mean, there's a line. I mean, we sang that tune on Friday at our gig. It was the last tune we did, and you know, there's a line in the chorus that goes, "When lies become reality, you know, we drug ourselves with we numb ourselves with drugs and TV." And I mean, it's, you know, that was written 12 years ago.
Yeah.
That could fit into the narrative now perfectly.
All right. Unfortunately,
yeah. No, I've never. But I feel like you have to kind of face these things, you know, to make popular music that's negative in a sense, or kind of sort of, you know, deals with the sort of darker side of stuff. It's quite a challenge, because unfortunately most pop music is very saccharine and very sort of manufactured,
sure,
you know, and very very programmable, because, you know, a disc jockey on a kind of sort of a feel good, no pun intended, radio station in I don't know, wherever. I'm going to pick the middle of America just because it needs that's right place. You know, they're not going to play a song that goes, and that was Demon Days. You know what I mean? They're just not, because it's like, where does that take their narrative in the middle of a sunny day in Texas? So it's quite difficult. It's quite a challenge.
Pulled it off. I mean,
that was I killed myself. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to happen. That was Your Love's So Great. But I mean, I'm being very generalised, but you know what I mean.
I do. Yeah.
It's quite hard to fit in with that sort of programmable music, which inevitably becomes the thing that the majority of people who don't necessarily search out other alternate kind of sort of realities, that's all they've got. That's all they're given. And that's what we're fighting always, that sort of giving people a sort of more breadth of experience through music, through art, through information, you know, and not allowing the kind of the malign forces of commercialism and misinformation to control everything.
And I guess for good reason, it seems like this has been on your mind for a while, and mine as well, because I don't know.
I think it's on any intelligent person's mind.
Sure, yeah.
How can it not be? It's kind of this, you know, we've been force-fed lies
for a while.
Yeah, and I mean the whole fucking global warming is not happening thing is that's really tragic. That.
And that's what we're hearing this morning about him, you know, being true to his threat about rolling back all the EPA bits and
has the man actually travelled around the world? Has he actually seen the world? No, he hasn't. He's seen, essentially his gilded penthouse, his gilded golf course, and things of that ilk.
Yeah.
He hasn't kind of camped out in the Brazilian rainforest. He hasn't walked through the back streets of Kinshasa. He hasn't. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
His
the
life
Ivory Tower.
Yeah. The Ivory Tower, exactly.
Is it fair to draw a line, or maybe even a continuation from where you left off on Everyday Robots, and especially the themes there? Because that feels like this is the next step of that, especially, I mean, playing two sides of the coin of Everyday Robots and Humanz.
Yeah, I suppose that they're connected, but I mean, it's still that both things are me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think these are the ways that we communicate with each other now. So music kind of and songwriting for me has to kind of go through that filter.
I think though, I expect these two records will play nice together, and again in the most unfortunate of ways. But as far as arts,
I'm sorry to be on such a bummer, but at least this time I've made it sound a bit more like a party.
It really is, and I want to bring up one of the first singles too, because "We Got the Power" is a great
that's positive.
Song,
that is positive,
right? And especially following, I guess, "Hallelujah Money," because for that to be the first sounds of the new Gorillaz and giving us a taste.
that was no one in their right mind sort of puts out the last song on a record as the first thing, but it was honestly written for the imaginary inauguration, so we had to sort of briefly air it on that day because that's what it was written for. It imagined that moment.
I mean, it would have been a missed opportunity otherwise.
It would have been a missed opportunity, but I mean, I was aware that we were, confusing something, but it's okay now. Hopefully, everyone now understands that it is a part of the party record I said it was going to be,
right? And
not a sort of free-fall waltz time with a kind of the ghost of Paul Robeson.
Party for the end of the world. That's the old line, right? Yeah. And I heard you got the special guest on it with I'm losing the name now, Jenny Beth, and I guess Noel Gallagher is on it as well. I guess I just
Dram.
Right.
And Dram.
I mean, you had to know, by the way,
on that.
You were going to blow up the internet once you announced that Noel was on the record as well. So, but there's something.
He's my mate, and it was kind of it was not easy to find a place for him on this record, for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. But that tune, I think personally, for the two of us, it was nice to sing that line, and it meant something.
Right. And I guess I would love to, ask the very obvious question. We've got the power to what?
Be loving each other no matter what happens, in the sense of we've got the power to sort of see through all of the bullshit and just like treat each other like human beings, whoever we are, wherever we are. And
it's such a difficult idea right now for the division.
It seems to be, but it just sort of, it's the only way we're gonna ever sort of march in the same direction.
God, I hope so.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, we're not going to do it any other way, are we?
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it's always worked.
It's not going to happen if we allow religion to kind of sort of dictate to us. It's not going to happen if we allow kind of commercial concerns to dictate to us. It's only going to happen if we're sort of humanists.
Of all of the socially reflective songs coming out, it has been nice to see the ones that are still kind of eyeing the whole game, but putting it in a positive light. To try to bring.
Well,
it
that's
together.
why I put it at the end of the album, because it really didn't fit anywhere else, and in a way, it's a bit of the cuckoo in the nest, that one.
Mm-hmm. Does it?
But I kind of see it in my kind of sort of dark, twisted fantasy about yet another end of the world scenario. It's the kind of it's the title music at the end, where at least you don't leave the cinema kind of thinking that all hope is lost.
It's the nice bow on it.
It's my Hollywood ending, basically.
That's nice. Well, sometimes we need the Hollywood ending. It's true.
Yeah, we do. I like a Hollywood ending.
Do you I don't know what you guys were going for specifically on the music for that one, but do you sense the nostalgia in the music? There's something about that song that actually takes me back to, in your early days a little bit, and what was happening in the Brit scene at that point.
I mean, at one point that song had Graham Coxon, Noel Gallagher, and myself.
Oh, well, there we go.
It was a testosterone-fueled kind of sort of homage to the glory days of Britpop. Guitars and everything, but it didn't fit on the record at all, and I was going to not even put it on the record. I just thought, well, maybe I'll do this at some other point in the future, but because it's not working, and then, I realised that I should persevere with it, so I just stripped it down and took out all the rock elements to it, and made it purely electronic, and then, sort of, because there's so many songs on the album which are kind of conversations between men and women, I thought, let's find someone with a kind of sort of, with their own power and their own sort of sense and vision of the world, and make it something for everyone. So literally we've got the power, men and women. We've all got that to work together.
Yeah, I love it, and it does. I mean, it does that nice thing. It there is something, reminiscent about the whole thing, but it sounds very. Current, and I will use that silly word again, contemporary.
And also, if people in America are going to be able to say we've got the power in French.
Okay, there you are, teaching us. We don't want to learn other languages.
Educational, positive and educational.
Speak American, Damon.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for talking today. I cannot wait to hear the rest of this record and everything this year. So,
cheers, man. Thanks for your time.
And again, my thanks to Damon Albarn. The new album is called The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows. Thanks to you as well for checking out this episode. Please do hit that subscribe button again so you can keep up with all the interviews that I put out. 3 brand new interviews every single week at all the usual spots like iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, Podchaser, NPR, YouTube for the video versions, or anywhere you get your podcast from. Subscribe to Kyle Meredith With. After that, head over to WFPK.org, where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. That's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, and bonus interviews Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots. That's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All 3 of them at Kyle Meredith. Over on TikTok at Kyle M. Meredith. I do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.
It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org from Louisville Public Media.